Los Angeles, August 23, 2024, Dr. Hamid Miro, a 61-year-old prominent physician, was found dead in the parking lot of his own clinic, executed with a single gunshot to the back of his head. The killer had vanished, leaving behind no witnesses and few clues. What first appeared to be a professional hit would soon unravel into a tale of betrayal, revealing a plot orchestrated by none other than his ex-wife, Aang Kelk. Let's turn back the clock to understand how a bitter divorce transformed into one of Los Angeles' most calculated murders. Dr. Hamid Miro represented the quintessential American success story in the medical community of Los Angeles. Born into a family that valued education and healing, young Hamid displayed an early aptitude for medicine that would shape his future trajectory. His journey through medical school was marked by excellence and determination, characteristics that would later define his professional career in one of America's most competitive healthcare markets. By his early 40s, Dr. Miro had established himself as more than just another physician in the sprawling landscape of Los Angeles healthcare. His practice in Woodland Hills became known for its exceptional patient care and innovative treatment approaches. The clinic, a modern facility carefully designed to provide both comfort and cutting-edge medical services, stood as a testament to his success. His patient roster grew to include well-known clients from Los Angeles entertainment and business circles, though he maintained his commitment to serving patients from all walks of life. It was during this ascent to prominence that Aang Kelk entered his life. Their first meeting, at a charity gala in 2008, seemed to possess all the elements of serendipity. Kelk, with her sharp intellect and ambitious nature, caught Dr. Miro's attention immediately. She possessed a commanding presence that complemented his more reserved demeanor, and their conversations that evening sparked what would become a whirlwind romance. Their courtship moved swiftly, driven by what appeared to be genuine affection and shared aspirations. Kelk showed genuine interest in Dr. Miro's medical practice, often offering insights about potential expansion opportunities and business strategies. Her business acumen seemed to perfectly complement his medical expertise, creating what many in their social circles saw as an ideal partnership. The wedding, held at one of Los Angeles' most prestigious venues, was a celebration that brought together the city's medical elite with Kelk's business associates. The couple appeared radiant, with Dr. Miro beaming with pride as he introduced his new wife to colleagues and friends. Their union seemed to promise a future filled with both personal and professional success. The early years of their marriage were marked by significant growth in Dr. Miro's practice. With Kelk's influence, the clinic expanded its services and modernized its operations. Their home life appeared equally successful. They purchased a beautiful property in an upscale neighborhood, participated in charity events, and became fixtures in Los Angeles' professional social scene. Dr. Miro's practice continued to thrive, attracting an ever-growing list of high-profile patients while maintaining its reputation for excellent care. However, beneath the polished surface of their success, the first hairline cracks in their relationship began to appear. Initially, they were subtle enough to be dismissed: slight disagreements over financial decisions, small conflicts about the direction of the medical practice, and minor tensions over their respective roles in managing their shared assets. Dr. Miro, focused on his patients and the medical aspects of his practice, initially paid little attention to these warning signs. The first significant red flag emerged when discrepancies appeared in the clinic's financial records. Small at first, these irregularities grew increasingly concerning as time passed. Dr. Miro began to notice unusual transactions and questionable financial decisions made without his full knowledge or consent. When confronted, Kelk would dismiss his concerns with plausible explanations, her business expertise often used to justify complex financial maneuvers that Dr. Miro struggled to fully understand. Their social dynamics also began to shift. What had once been Kelk's supportive presence at medical functions gradually transformed into something more controlling. She began to insert herself more forcefully into professional decisions, sometimes causing tension with long-standing staff members and colleagues. Dr. Miro found himself increasingly caught between maintaining harmony in his marriage and preserving the professional autonomy he had built over decades. As 2009 drew to a close, the strain in their relationship became more apparent to those closest to them. Staff at the clinic noticed increased tensions during Kelk's visits, and friends observed heated exchanges at social events. The once perfect partnership showed signs of fracturing under the weight of conflicting expectations and growing mistrust. The turning point came when Dr. Miro discovered significant unauthorized withdrawals from both personal and business accounts. This discovery prompted a closer examination of their financial dealings, revealing a pattern of behavior that would later become central to their bitter divorce proceedings. The trust that had been the foundation of their relationship had been irreparably damaged. What had begun as a promising union between two ambitious individuals had devolved into a complex web of financial disputes and personal antagonism. The stage was set for what would become one of Los Angeles' most contentious divorce cases, marking the end of their brief but tumultuous marriage and the beginning of a dangerous spiral of events that would ultimately lead to tragedy. As 2010 approached, Dr. Miro began to take steps to protect himself and his practice, consulting with attorneys and financial advisors. These actions, while necessary, would spark a chain of events that would dramatically alter both their lives. The once promising partnership had transformed into a cautionary tale of how quickly trust can erode and how devastating the consequences of that erosion can be. The disintegration of Dr. Hamid Miro and Aang Kelk's marriage in 2010 marked the beginning of a dark and turbulent chapter that would ultimately spiral into violence. When Dr. Miro filed for divorce in January 2010, citing irreconcilable differences, few could have predicted the savage battle that would ensue. The initial filing, submitted to the Los Angeles Superior Court, detailed financial misconduct that shocked even seasoned divorce attorneys. Within days of the divorce filing, Kelk launched an aggressive counteroffensive. She claimed partial ownership of the medical practice, arguing that her business acumen had been instrumental in its growth. Her legal team filed motions demanding immediate access to all clinic financial records, patient lists, and operational documents. Dr. Miro's attorneys, however, presented evidence that Kelk had already obtained much of this information through unauthorized means. The first signs of Kelk's volatile behavior emerged in March 2010, when she appeared unannounced at the clinic after hours. Security footage showed her attempting to access Dr. Miro's private office, leading to a confrontation with the cleaning staff. When questioned by police, she claimed she was merely retrieving personal items, but a subsequent search of her bag revealed downloaded financial documents and patient files, a serious HIPAA violation that would later feature prominently in court proceedings. By April 2010, the situation had deteriorated to the point where Dr. Miro sought his first restraining order. The petition, filed with trembling hands in the Los Angeles courthouse, documented a series of disturbing incidents. Text messages submitted as evidence revealed escalating threats. "You'll lose everything you've built," and "you don't know what I'm capable of." The court granted a temporary restraining order, but this legal protection seemed to only fuel Kelk's rage. The financial devastation became apparent in May 2010 when Dr. Miro discovered that multiple accounts had been systematically drained. Bank statements revealed a calculated pattern. Small withdrawals made over months had suddenly accelerated into massive transfers. Nearly $2.8 million had vanished from various accounts, transferred through a labyrinth of shell companies. Kelk's financial expertise had been weaponized against the very man who had once trusted her with his life's work. Court documents from June 2010 painted a disturbing picture of calculated financial warfare. Dr. Miro's forensic accountants uncovered evidence of long-term fraud, forged signatures on loan documents, unauthorized credit lines opened in the clinic's name, and systematic manipulation of financial records. The clinic's billing system had been compromised, with patient payments redirected to accounts controlled by Kelk. The property disputes reached a fever pitch in July 2010. Kelk claimed ownership of their Woodland Hills mansion, arguing that her separate funds had been used for the down payment. When Dr. Miro provided proof that the home had been purchased entirely with his pre-marriage assets, Kelk retaliated by breaking in while he was at work. She systematically destroyed valuable artwork, family heirlooms, and medical certificates. The police report described rooms, ransacked with surgical precision, with items of purely sentimental value targeted for maximum emotional damage. August 2010 brought a new wave of threats. Dr. Miro's staff began receiving anonymous calls warning them to seek new employment. Long-term patients reported receiving emails containing false allegations about Dr. Miro's medical practices. The campaign of harassment was so comprehensive that the California Medical Board launched an investigation, only to conclude that the complaints were part of a coordinated smear campaign. By September, the divorce proceedings had become a war of attrition. Kelk's legal team filed motion after motion, each requiring immediate response and draining Dr. Miro's resources. They contested every aspect of the marriage's timeline, disputed the validity of prenuptial agreements, and demanded exhaustive documentation of every transaction in the clinic's history. The legal fees alone threatened to cripple the medical practice. The revelation of Kelk's systematic theft reached new heights in October 2010. Investigators discovered a storage unit rented under a false name containing original clinic documents, patient files, and even medical equipment that had mysteriously disappeared over the previous year. The unit also contained detailed notebooks in Kelk's handwriting, outlining plans to systematically dismantle Dr. Miro's practice. November brought a particularly vicious escalation. Dr. Miro's car was vandalized in the clinic parking lot, its brake lines cut, a fact discovered only by chance during a routine maintenance check. Though Kelk denied any involvement, security footage showed a figure matching her description in the parking lot the night before. The incident led to a second, more comprehensive restraining order. As 2010 drew to a close, the toll of the year's events was evident in Dr. Miro's appearance and demeanor. The once confident physician had become hypervigilant, installing extensive security systems at both his home and clinic. His staff implemented strict security protocols, with panic buttons installed throughout the facility. The carefree doctor who had once welcomed anyone into his practice was replaced by a man who jumped at shadows. December 2010 brought the first physical confrontation. Kelk violated the restraining order, appearing at a medical conference where Dr. Miro was speaking. The ensuing altercation, captured on multiple cell phones, showed her screaming accusations while attempting to approach the podium. When security intervened, she fought them, leading to her first arrest, though charges were later dropped under mysterious circumstances. The year ended with Dr. Miro filing an extensive civil suit against Kelk, documenting every instance of fraud, theft, and harassment. The complaint, running to over 300 pages, laid bare the systematic destruction of trust and professional reputation. It would become the foundation for years of legal battles to come, each more bitter than the last. What no one realized then was that these events were merely the prelude to a much darker symphony of revenge. The financial warfare and legal battles of 2010 had set the stage for a culmination that would shock even those who had witnessed the marriage's violent dissolution. As Dr. Miro prepared for another year of legal battles, he remained unaware that his ex-wife's true plans were only beginning to take shape. The years following the divorce saw Aang Kelk's obsession with claiming a larger share of Dr. Miro's estate transform from a legal pursuit into something far more sinister. What began as courtroom warfare evolved into a calculated campaign of terror, with each escalation more brazen than the last. As the calendar pages turned, the shadow of violence loomed ever larger over Dr. Miro's once peaceful life. Between 2011 and early 2024, Kelk filed no fewer than 17 separate motions attempting to reopen the financial settlements from their divorce. Each petition came with increasingly outlandish claims about hidden assets and secret accounts. Her legal team, cycling through a carousel of increasingly aggressive attorneys, bombarded the courts with demands for new forensic audits of the medical practice. Dr. Miro's lawyers successfully defended against each attempt, but the constant legal assault extracted a heavy toll, both financially and emotionally. The pattern of intimidation took on new dimensions as Kelk began to appear at locations connected to Dr. Miro's personal life. She was spotted outside his favorite restaurants, photographed lurking near his gym, and even appeared uninvited at private medical functions. These chance encounters always seemed to occur just outside the technical boundaries of the restraining order, demonstrating a calculated understanding of legal limitations. By early 2024, the harassment had evolved into something more orchestrated. Security cameras at Dr. Miro's clinic captured suspicious figures conducting surveillance, often sitting in parked cars for hours. Staff members reported being followed home, and several received anonymous phone calls asking detailed questions about Dr. Miro's schedule. These incidents, while unsettling, were just preludes to the violence to come. The first direct assault came in May 2024, marking a dramatic escalation in tactics. As Dr. Miro left his clinic one evening, Two men, later identified as Evan Hardman and Sela Jed, emerged from the shadows wielding baseball bats. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving Dr. Miro with 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a concussion. Security footage showed the precision of the assault. The attackers knew exactly when and where to strike, suggesting inside knowledge of Dr. Miro's routines. The baseball bat incident sparked a thorough police investigation, but the attackers had been careful to conceal their identities. What investigators didn't know then was that Hardman and Jed were not merely random thugs for hire. They were part of a larger conspiracy orchestrated by Kelk, carefully chosen for their ability to follow instructions while maintaining discretion. In the aftermath of the assault, Dr. Miro's legal team filed for an emergency hearing to strengthen the existing restraining order. During the proceedings, they presented evidence suggesting Kelk's involvement in the attack, including suspicious financial transfers and cell phone records placing her in communication with unknown numbers in the days leading up to the incident. While the court granted the enhanced protection order, the evidence wasn't sufficient to bring criminal charges against Kelk at that time. June 2024 brought a new wave of legal maneuvering. Kelk's attorneys filed a motion claiming that Dr. Miro's medical practice had been significantly undervalued during their divorce proceedings. They demanded access to 14 years of financial records, patient files, and operational documents. The timing of this legal assault was no coincidence. It coincided with a series of anonymous complaints to the medical board, forcing Dr. Miro to divide his attention between defending his practice and protecting his license. The summer months saw an intensification of psychological warfare. Patients began receiving anonymous letters containing false allegations about Dr. Miro's medical practices. His professional reputation, built over decades of dedicated service, came under attack from multiple directions. Investigation would later reveal that these letters were part of a coordinated campaign, with Kelk allegedly using her business connections to orchestrate the smear campaign. Just days before the fatal shooting, Dr. Miro and Kelk faced each other in court one final time. The hearing, scheduled for August 20, 2024, concerned yet another attempt by Kelk to claim a larger share of the medical practice's assets. Witnesses would later recall the palpable tension in the courtroom as Kelk glared at her ex-husband throughout the proceedings. When the judge ruled in Dr. Miro's favor, Kelk's reaction was chilling. "This isn't over," she muttered, loud enough for several people to hear. "You'll see what happens to people who steal what's mine." Those words would take on a prophetic significance just 3 days later. Unknown to Dr. Miro, Kelk had already set in motion the final phase of her revenge plan. Bank records would later show that on the very day of the court hearing, she had made several large cash withdrawals from different accounts. Cell phone records would reveal a flurry of communications between her and the other conspirators in the hours following the hearing. The tension reached its breaking point in those final days of August. Dr. Miro, sensing the escalating danger, had begun taking additional security precautions. He varied his routes to and from work, installed new security cameras at his home, and even considered hiring personal protection. But these measures would prove insufficient against the elaborate plot already in motion. On August 22, the day before the murder, Dr. Miro contacted his attorney to discuss updating his will. During this conversation, he expressed concern about recent events, noting that something felt different about Kelk's behavior. "She's too calm," he reportedly said. "After all these years, I know that's when she's most dangerous." These would prove to be tragically prescient words. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when investigators later discovered that Kelk had rented a small office space overlooking Dr. Miro's clinic parking lot. This vantage point would have provided perfect surveillance of the doctor's daily routines, allowing the conspirators to plan their attack with military precision. The lease on this office had been signed just 2 weeks before the murder, using a false name and cash payments. As August 23 dawned, no one could have predicted that the long-simmering conflict between Dr. Miro and his ex-wife was about to reach its brutal conclusion. The pattern of escalation that had begun with legal papers and threatening words was about to culminate in an act of violence that would shock the entire Los Angeles medical community. The intricate web of conspiracy that would ultimately claim Dr. Hamid Miro's life began taking shape in the sweltering summer of 2024. Aang Kelk, her fury fueled by years of perceived injustice, had moved beyond mere legal warfare. In the privacy of her newly purchased Los Angeles condo, she meticulously crafted a plan that would require precision, loyalty, and most importantly, individuals willing to cross the ultimate line. The recruitment process revealed Kelk's calculating nature. Rather than seeking hired killers through traditional criminal channels, she carefully selected individuals with whom she had cultivated relationships over the years. Each conspirator was chosen not just for their capabilities, but for their personal grievances or financial desperations that made them susceptible to manipulation. Seller Jed, at 26 the youngest of the conspirators, became involved through Hardman. Their previous collaboration in the May baseball bet attack had proven Jed's reliability and willingness to engage in violence. As the secondary driver, Jed's role was to provide backup transportation and ensure that all evidence linking the group to the crime was properly disposed of. His youth and clean criminal record made him less likely to attract attention. Sean Randolph, 46, emerged as the logistical coordinator of the operation. A former real estate agent with a gambling addiction, Randolph's expertise in property transactions proved crucial in setting up the surveillance operation. He secured the rental office overlooking Dr. Miro's clinic, using fake credentials and cash payments to avoid detection. His role extended to maintaining communication between the conspirators while ensuring their electronic footprints remained minimal. At the center of this deadly spider's web sat Kelk, orchestrating every detail with cold precision. Her background in financial management became evident in the way she structured payments to her co-conspirators, complex series of transactions designed to obscure their true nature. She established a network of shell companies, each serving as a layer of protection between her and the actual murder plot. The surveillance operation began 6 weeks before the planned execution. Using the rented office space as their base, the conspirators meticulously documented Dr. Miro's daily routines. They noted his arrival and departure times, identified patterns in his movement between his car and the clinic entrance, and mapped out all possible escape routes from the parking lot. Hardman, drawing on his military experience, conducted detailed reconnaissance of the area. He identified blind spots in the existing security camera coverage and timed local police patrol patterns. The lack of surveillance cameras in certain sections of the parking lot, a detail that would later haunt Dr. Miro's staff, made it an ideal location for the ambush. The group held planning meetings under the guise of business consultations in various locations across Los Angeles. Kelk insisted on strict operational security measures, burner phones, cash-only transactions, and meetings in public places where their gatherings would appear innocent. Each conspirator was given a specific role and timeline, with redundancies built into the plan to ensure success. The weapon selection highlighted the calculated nature of the conspiracy. Hardman chose a .40 caliber handgun with a suppressor, purchased through an illegal dealer in Nevada. The choice of ammunition, hollow-point bullets designed for maximum damage, revealed the intent. This was not meant to be a warning or an injury, but a guaranteed kill. In the week leading up to the murder, the conspirators conducted 3 dry runs. Sweeting and Jed practiced their driving routes, timing different escape paths through Los Angeles traffic. Hardman rehearsed the approach and shooting sequence, while Randolph coordinated their movements from the surveillance office. Kelk, maintaining plausible deniability, arranged to be seen at public events during these practice sessions. The attention to detail extended to their appearance and disguises. Surveillance footage later recovered from nearby businesses showed the conspirators had carefully chosen clothing that would be difficult to describe or remember. They coordinated their movements to appear random and unconnected, even while executing their carefully choreographed plan. The financial aspects of the plot revealed Kelk's expertise. She structured the payments to her co-conspirators through a series of legitimate-appearing transactions. Business consultancy fees, real estate commissions, and personal loans created a paper trail that, while suspicious under close examination, would initially appear routine. As the planned date approached, Kelk took steps to establish her alibi. She arranged high-profile meetings, made visible appearances at charity events, and even scheduled a medical appointment for the afternoon of the planned murder. These public appearances were carefully documented on social media, creating a digital trail that would temporarily deflect suspicion. The final meeting of all 5 conspirators took place 2 days before the murder, in a private dining room at a busy Los Angeles restaurant. Security camera footage later recovered by investigators showed them arriving and departing separately over a 3-hour period. This meeting, where final roles were confirmed and timing synchronized, would later prove crucial in establishing the conspiracy charges. On the eve of the murder, each participant took their assigned positions. Sweeting and Jed parked their vehicles at predetermined locations near the clinic, chosen for quick access to major thoroughfares. Hardman checked into a nearby motel under a false name, preparing for his role the next day. Randolph ensured all communication channels were clear, while Kelk maintained her public schedule with chilling normalcy. What none of them realized was that their careful planning would ultimately unravel due to a series of small mistakes and unforeseen circumstances. The very precision of their plot would later help investigators piece together the conspiracy, as patterns emerged from their seemingly random actions. As the sun set on August 22, 2024, the trap was set, but fate had other plans for how this deadly scheme would eventually be exposed. August 23, 2024, began as any other late summer day in Woodland Hills, California. Dr. Hamid Miro arrived at his clinic at precisely 7:45 a.m., following his usual routine. Security footage from the building's entrance captured him carrying his leather briefcase and a coffee cup from his favorite local cafe. He nodded to the morning receptionist, Maria Santos, with his characteristic warm smile, a gesture she would later recall with tears during police interviews. The day's appointment schedule was typically full, reflecting Dr. Miro's reputation as one of Los Angeles' most sought-after physicians. His calendar, later retrieved by investigators, showed back-to-back consultations starting at 8:30 a.m. His last patient, a long-term client with chronic arthritis, was scheduled for 4:45 p.m. None of his staff noticed anything unusual about his demeanor, though his assistant would later remember him checking his phone more frequently than usual. Unknown to Dr. Miro, the elaborate machinery of his murder was already in motion. By 7 a.m., Evan Hardman had positioned himself in the surveillance office rented by Sean Randolph, methodically assembling his weapon and reviewing the planned escape routes. Ashley Rose Sweeting had parked her white Toyota Camry, deliberately chosen for its ubiquity, in a pre-selected spot 3 blocks away. Seller Jed waited in his dark blue Honda Civic at another location, engine idling, ready for his role in the complex getaway plan. Throughout the day, Dr. Miro went about his duties with his usual dedication. Security cameras captured him moving between examination rooms, consulting with staff, and taking his usual brief lunch break at 1:30 p.m. At 3:15 p.m., he stepped out briefly to take a phone call, later determined to be from his attorney regarding recent developments in the ongoing legal battle with Kelk. The call lasted 7 minutes, during which Dr. Miro could be seen pacing in the parking lot, his gestures suggesting frustration. As the afternoon wore on, the conspirators maintained their positions. Hardman, from his vantage point, tracked Dr. Miro's movements through the clinic's windows. Sweeting and Jed regularly checked in via burner phones, confirming their readiness. Randolph coordinated their communications from a coffee shop 2 miles away, maintaining a public presence while directing the operation. At 4:45 p.m., Dr. Miro's last patient arrived. The consultation, scheduled for 30 minutes, extended to nearly 45 as the doctor took extra time to adjust the patient's treatment plan. This minor delay would prove significant in the timing of what was to follow. Meanwhile, Aang Kelk was attending a charity function in Beverly Hills, carefully establishing her alibi while receiving encrypted updates about the operation's progress. At 5:27 p.m., Dr. Miro emerged from the clinic's rear entrance into the parking lot. The security camera facing the door captured him exchanging final words with his assistant, discussing plans for the following day's appointments. He carried his briefcase in his right hand and his car keys in his left, walking with the slightly hurried pace of someone ready to head home after a long day. The next 3 minutes would change everything. As Dr. Miro approached his black Mercedes, Hardman emerged from behind a white delivery van that had been strategically parked to create a blind spot in the lot's security coverage. Wearing dark clothing and a face mask, ostensibly a common COVID precaution, Hardman moved with military precision. The security footage, grainy and partially obscured, shows a figure approaching Dr. Miro from behind. At 5:30 p.m. precisely, a single shot rang out. The sound, muffled by the suppressor, was described by one distant witness as no louder than a car door slamming. The hollow-point bullet struck Dr. Miro in the back of the head, designed for maximum damage. He collapsed immediately, briefcase still clutched in his hand. The execution had been carried out exactly as planned. Hardman's escape was swift and methodical. He walked, not ran, to a predetermined point where Sweeting waited in the white Camry. They drove calmly to a secondary location, where Jed was waiting. Hardman transferred to Jed's vehicle, while Sweeting drove in another direction. The murder weapon was disassembled and disposed of in various dumpsters across Los Angeles County. The first 911 call came at 6:10 p.m., 40 minutes after the shooting. A cleaning crew member, arriving for the evening shift, discovered Dr. Miro's body. The initial police response was swift but complicated by the fading daylight and lack of immediate witnesses. The parking lot, designed for patient privacy, had become the perfect setting for murder. Los Angeles Police Department detectives arrived at 6:35 p.m. to find a crime scene that was remarkable for its precision. A single shell casing was recovered approximately 15 feet from the body. Dr. Miro lay face down, his briefcase still gripped in his right hand. His car keys had scattered several feet away, glinting under the newly activated parking lot lights. The crime scene investigation revealed the calculated nature of the killing. The shooter had positioned himself to avoid the few functioning security cameras. The angle of the shot suggested someone familiar with tactical operations. Most telling was the lack of signs of struggle or robbery. Dr. Miro's wallet, expensive watch, and car were untouched, immediately indicating a targeted hit. The immediate police canvass of the area proved frustratingly fruitless. The few witnesses in the vicinity reported nothing unusual, a testament to the conspirators' planning. A woman walking her dog had heard what she thought was a car door. A teenage skateboarder remembered seeing a white Toyota, but couldn't recall any details. The cleaning crew member who discovered the body had seen nothing suspicious upon arrival. By 8 p.m., news of Dr. Miro's murder had begun to spread through Los Angeles medical community. Colleagues and patients gathered outside the police cordon, their shock and grief palpable. Local news crews arrived, their cameras capturing the somber scene as crime scene technicians worked methodically under portable floodlights. Among those who appeared at the scene was Aang Kelk, arriving directly from her charity event in Beverly Hills. Her performance was masterful. The grieving ex-wife, appropriately shocked and distressed. She gave a brief statement to police, expressing her horror at the murder of her former husband. Officers noted her composed demeanor and detailed alibi, but at that point had no reason to suspect her involvement. As midnight approached, Dr. Miro's body was finally removed from the scene. The parking lot, now empty except for his Mercedes and a few police vehicles, bore little evidence of the violence that had occurred. Only the crime scene markers, numbered placards indicating where evidence had been collected, suggested that this had become the site of one of Los Angeles' most calculated murders. The investigation into Dr. Hamid Miro's murder began as a seemingly impenetrable mystery. For the first 2 weeks, the Los Angeles Police Department's Homicide Division found themselves staring at a wall of dead ends. The precision of the killing suggested professional involvement, yet the complete absence of traditional criminal connections left investigators struggling to establish a starting point. Detective Sarah Martinez, the lead investigator assigned to the case, recognized early on that this was no ordinary murder. The level of planning, the execution, the escape, everything about this screamed premeditation, she would later testify. Her team began methodically constructing a timeline of Dr. Miro's final days, focusing on his personal and professional relationships. The first breakthrough came through Dr. Miro's cell phone records. Digital forensics revealed a pattern of calls from unknown numbers in the weeks leading up to his death. These calls, lasting only seconds, suggested surveillance, someone testing his schedule and movements. Cross-referencing these numbers with cell tower data painted a picture of systematic stalking. By mid-September, investigators had begun to notice peculiar financial patterns. Small transactions, seemingly insignificant when viewed individually, formed a suspicious pattern when analyzed collectively. Multiple cash withdrawals, each just under $10,000 to avoid mandatory reporting requirements, had been made from accounts connected to shell companies. The financial investigation team, led by forensic accountant Marcus Chen, traced these transactions back to a complex web of business entities. Aang Kelk maintained an active social media presence throughout this period. Her posts, carefully crafted to project grief and shock, told the story of a woman devastated by her ex-husband's murder. "Hamid, the kids and I are in so much shock," she wrote 3 days after the murder. "We miss you so bad." These public displays of mourning would later be used to demonstrate her calculated deception. October brought a significant development when a routine review of security footage from businesses near the clinic revealed something crucial. A white Toyota Camry, matching witness descriptions, had been seen in the area multiple times in the weeks before the murder. The driver, later identified as Ashley Rose Sweeting, was captured on camera meeting with an unknown male at a cafe 3 blocks from the crime scene. The investigation's direction shifted dramatically when Detective Martinez received an anonymous tip in late October. The caller, later revealed to be a former employee of Kelk's, provided information about suspicious meetings at various Los Angeles restaurants. Surveillance footage from these locations showed members of the conspiracy gathering, though at the time they appeared to be innocent business meetings. November marked a turning point in the case. Cell phone data analysis revealed a pattern of communications between 5 specific numbers, all using burner phones, in the days surrounding the murder. The breakthrough came when one of these phones was carelessly used to make a call to a registered number, belonging to seller Jed's grandmother. This single mistake unraveled the entire conspiracy. Once Jed was identified, investigators began connecting the dots. His previous involvement in the May baseball bat attack with Evan Hardman provided the link to another conspirator. Financial records showed payments from shell companies connected to Kelk flowing to both men through seemingly legitimate business transactions. The involvement of Ashley Rose Sweeting emerged through her connection to the clinic. Her bitter departure years earlier and subsequent contact with Kelk established a clear motive for participation. Surveillance footage showed her vehicle near the clinic on multiple occasions, conducting what investigators believed were practice runs for the murder. Sean Randolph's role became clear when investigators traced the rental agreement for the surveillance office. Though registered under a false name, security camera footage clearly showed Randolph accessing the building multiple times in the weeks before the murder. His gambling debts provided a clear motive for participation in the scheme. Digital forensics proved crucial in building the case. Despite the conspirators' use of burner phones, their personal devices revealed damning evidence. Location data from their regular phones placed them in proximity to meeting locations identified through surveillance footage. Email records, recovered despite attempts at deletion, showed coded communications about business opportunities and investment strategies. By early December, investigators had assembled a compelling case against all 5 conspirators. The breakthrough that led to the arrests came when one of Sweeting's family members, troubled by her sudden financial windfall, contacted police with suspicious text messages she had sent regarding a big payday coming. The arrest operation was coordinated with military precision. On December 12, all 5 suspects were taken into custody simultaneously to prevent any warning or evidence destruction. Kelk was arrested at her yoga studio, maintaining her composure even as detectives read her rights. Hardman was apprehended in Texas, while Sweeting and Jed were found at their respective residences. Randolph attempted to flee but was caught at Los Angeles International Airport. The evidence recovered during the arrests proved damning. Search warrants executed at multiple locations revealed burner phones, financial documents, and handwritten notes detailing aspects of the murder plot. In Kelk's home office, investigators discovered a hidden safe containing documents outlining payments to the other conspirators, carefully disguised as business transactions. Perhaps most crucial to the prosecution's case was the recovery of surveillance footage from the rented office overlooking Dr. Miro's clinic. Though they had attempted to wipe the recordings, digital forensics experts recovered fragments showing the conspirators conducting surveillance and planning meetings. The case against Kelk as the mastermind was particularly strong. Investigators uncovered evidence of her methodical planning stretching back months before the murder. Financial records showed her systematically liquidating assets and setting up shell companies to funnel payments to her co-conspirators. Her careful establishment of alibis and public displays of grief now appeared as evidence of her calculated approach to the murder. As the investigation concluded, the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. What had initially appeared as a professional hit was revealed to be an intricately planned murder orchestrated by a woman whose hatred had festered through years of bitter legal battles. The precision of the execution reflected not professional criminal expertise, but the calculated planning of individuals driven by a combination of greed, revenge, and desperation. The prosecution of Dr. Hamid Miro's killers began on December 15, 2024, with a dramatic press conference held by Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hawkman. Standing before a wall of cameras in the courthouse rotunda, Hawkman laid out the charges against all 5 defendants, his voice carrying the weight of the tragedy. "The horror and betrayal of this crime are beyond words," he declared. "The depth of deception and violence involved in this case is chilling, and we will not rest until justice is served." The charging documents revealed the full scope of the prosecution's strategy. Aang Kelk, as the alleged mastermind, faced the most serious charges: first-degree murder with special circumstances, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation of murder. The special circumstances charge stemmed from lying in wait, a legal distinction that significantly enhanced the potential penalties. Under California law, this charge alone made her eligible for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Evan Hardman, the alleged shooter, faced identical charges. His role as the physical executioner of the plot placed him in the same legal jeopardy as Kelk. The prosecution's decision to charge him with special circumstances reflected their view that the careful planning and surveillance of Dr. Miro constituted lying in wait, transforming an already serious murder charge into one of California's most severely punished crimes. Ashley Rose Sweeting's arraignment on December 18 provided the first public glimpse of the conspirators in court. Her plea of not guilty echoed through the hushed courtroom, a stark contrast to the mountain of evidence detailed in the prosecution's filing. Her attorney's attempts to secure bail were swiftly rejected, with Judge Gloria Martinez citing the sophistication of the conspiracy and risk of flight. The extradition proceedings for Hardman became a complex legal battle. Texas authorities had arrested him at his Houston residence, but his legal team immediately filed challenges to the extradition request. The proceedings threatened to delay the California case, leading prosecutors to begin preparing parallel cases in both jurisdictions to ensure justice would not be delayed. Sela Jed's bail hearing on December 30 revealed new details about the conspiracy. Prosecutors presented evidence of his role not just in the murder but in the earlier baseball bat attack, arguing that this pattern of escalating violence made him a continued threat to public safety. Judge Martinez again denied bail, ordering Jed held in custody pending trial. The most anticipated appearance was Kelk's arraignment, scheduled for January 6, 2025. Security at the courthouse was heightened, reflecting both the high-profile nature of the case and concerns about potential reprisals. Kelk entered the courtroom in a designer suit, her composed demeanor a stark contrast to her social media posts expressing grief over Dr. Miro's death. Throughout these proceedings, the impact on Los Angeles' medical community continued to reverberate. Dr. Miro's clinic, once a bustling center of healing, stood empty. His patients, many of whom had relied on his care for decades, were left not only grieving but struggling to find new healthcare providers who could match his level of expertise and compassion. The case sparked intense debate within legal circles about the prosecution of murder-for-hire cases. The sophistication of the conspiracy, particularly the use of shell companies and digital communication tools, highlighted the evolving nature of contract killings. Legal experts noted that the case could set important precedents for how similar crimes are investigated and prosecuted in the digital age. The prosecutors presenting their evidence in methodical detail. Financial records showed the elaborate network of payments through shell companies. Surveillance footage demonstrated the careful planning and execution of the murder. Cell phone records painted a picture of constant communication between the conspirators in the days leading up to the killing. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from Kelk's own digital footprint. Her social media posts expressing grief over Dr. Miro's death were presented alongside evidence of her role in planning his murder. The contrast between her public persona and private actions became a powerful testament to her calculated deception. The case also highlighted the particular dangers faced by medical professionals. The Los Angeles Medical Association issued a statement calling for enhanced security measures at medical facilities, noting that professionals like Dr. Miro were particularly vulnerable to targeted violence due to their predictable schedules and necessary accessibility to patients. As the legal proceedings continued, the potential sentences loomed over all 5 defendants. Under California law, the special circumstances charge carried a mandatory minimum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The additional charges of conspiracy and solicitation could add significant time to any sentence, ensuring that even plea bargains would result in substantial prison terms. The prosecution's case was strengthened by the mountain of physical and digital evidence. Each defendant's role was meticulously documented through financial records, surveillance footage, and cell phone data. The careful planning that had gone into the murder now served as evidence of premeditation and special circumstances. The impact on Dr. Miro's family continued to resonate throughout the proceedings. His children, present at many of the hearings, faced the difficult task of reconciling their mother's public displays of grief with her alleged role in their father's murder. Their presence in the courtroom served as a constant reminder of the human cost of this calculated act of violence. As the case moves toward trial, scheduled for late 2025, the broader implications for the justice system become clear. The prosecution of the Miro murder conspiracy demonstrates the evolving nature of contract killings in the digital age, where traditional criminal networks are replaced by seemingly respectable individuals connected through business relationships and social ties. The case has already begun to influence how law enforcement approaches similar investigations. The successful use of digital forensics, financial tracking, and surveillance footage analysis has created a template for investigating sophisticated murder conspiracies. The prosecution's methodical building of the case, from initial investigation through charging decisions, serves as a model for future cases. As Los Angeles awaits the trial, Dr. Miro's legacy lives on through the changes his death has inspired in medical facility security and the prosecution of murder-for-hire cases. His tragic end serves as a sobering reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred and the importance of protecting those who dedicate their lives to healing others.